Today, I want to start with the article that I brought out called Why is the Working Class So Angry? There is an author, Leopold. So he wrote an article titled 135.9 Million Reasons Why the Working Class is So Angry. Then he says, since 1993, 60.2 million workers who had been on the job for at least 3 years have laid off. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, another 75.7 million with less than 3 years tenure have also been let go. In total, that's 135.9 million workers who know all too well the pain and suffering of a major disruption of their employment. Working people understand that the periodic ups and downs of the economy can legitimately lead to job loss. But they also know that in many cases, the reason they lost their job was not mismatches in supply and demand. Rather, their jobs were sacrificed to satisfy out and out corporate greed. I disagree with that sentence. Leopold, I love you, brother, but that's wrong. Most people don't know it. When most people lose their job, the first thing they say, that damn president caused me to lose my job, or he messed up the economy and all of that. That's the first thing that the average American citizens think. That's why Trump can go out right now and say Biden is screwing up the economy, even though under Biden, the unemployment rate went from double digits all the way down to now 4.1%, right? But somehow you can blame the wrong person for it. So Leopold, I understand what he's doing right there, but he's incorrect in believing that most people understand what he wrote next. And here's what he wrote next: private equity and greed. And while he understands it, most people don't. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read his paragraph, and then I'm going to explain in a bit more detail. Private equity and greed. Workers know that when a private equity firm buys up the company at which they work, trouble lies ahead. Just ask the 33,000 workers at Toys R Us who lost their jobs when the fabled company was driven into ground by KKR, a huge private equity company. KKR bought the toy giant for $6 billion in 2005. $5 billion of the purchase price was financed with debt, and KKR put on the Toys R Us which KKR put on Toys R Us books. Then the rape and pillage commenced as Toys R Us costs due to service the debt, pay KKR hefty management fees, and quickly fall behind in competition. Walmart and Amazon, Ali Savarral, writing in the LA Times, wrote, KKR and its partners sold off Toys R Us real estate, pocketed the money, and forced retailer to lease back its buildings, along with KKR and other firms paid themselves $250 million in management fees and big bonuses to handpick executives right before Toys R Us entered bankruptcy. This deserves a little bit more understanding. When I talk about the difference between capitalism and free enterprise, I'm talking about the difference between a slave-based economy where others do the work and some people just profit from the work, rather than a collective economy where everybody is paid commensurate with what they produce. Meaning a farmer is paid commensurate with the food he produces. A banker is commensurate with the service he provides to the society to manage somebody's money, etc. But there is a class of people, the private equity firm, that has no right to exist because they produce absolutamente nada, nothing. They look at you, they look at a company, and they say, aha, there's a company. How can I take that company and make some money off of it? Let me tell you what they did with Toys R Us. Toys R Us, a profitable company with a lot of assets, buildings, and all of that, stores that they own. They own these things. The company, a successful company. And what do? They say, wait a minute, we can take that company and monetize that company. Wait a minute, guys. This is a private equity firm. It has done nothing to sell toys. It has done nothing to build toys. It has done nothing to service anything in the toy industry. So they come in and they say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to buy up the stocks of that company, right? I'm a private equity firm. And I am going to then take that company and borrow the money from the banks on that stock. And then, by the way, I'm doing this as Toys R Us, right? So that debt belongs to Toys R Us, right? So what is debt? I got an influx of monies. That's debt, right? And it's backed by what? Assets. But again, the assets are there, right? And those of us who did that transaction take a hefty fee. We are managing this buyout. Remember, they've produced no toys, they've sold no toys, they've done nothing. They just went into that company. They have capital. They use their capital to start the process of owning the company, leveraging the company. Leveraging means turning the company's assets into debt. It is like if you own your house outright. You can leverage your house by saying, I will take out a loan on my house. I still live in the house. I have a loan. I pay back some money on a monthly basis, but I have a whole bunch of cash I can go blow on vacations and cars and all of that as I just pay back that loan. They leverage that company. They leverage the employees of that company. They extract fees. Again, what are these fees? Millions of dollars just to do this transaction that should not have occurred in the first place. Millions of dollars they charge the company to teach it how to borrow money on the assets that that company has already accumulated. But it goes a bit further than that. They then sells the buildings and assets that the company owns to, maybe a REIT, a reinvestment, a real estate investment trust or something like that. They may sell the buildings to these other financial entities. And then Toys R Us is then forced to pay rent for the building it once owned. So whoever bought all those buildings from Toys R Us and gave them cash, now they're getting their cash back in the form of rents. It's capitalism at its max. That is legal. And that is what caused the demise of Toys R Us. And whenever you hear about a company that seemingly had been doing very well for decades and decades and decades, and suddenly they're going bankrupt, and it's not like the people stop buying a whole lot of toys. If you go ahead and look at these companies' books, they're within 10% up and down, 10% up and down. They don't deserve to be out of business. All those employees do not deserve to be gone, but that's what it does to you. But now you don't have the news media telling you this in detail. They're telling you, oh, their profits have gone down because their expenses have gone out of control. Their expenses went out of control because they're now paying rent for the buildings they once owned. They're paying management fees for the loans that this new owner of these stock took out on the business, and then somehow they want to cut employee wages, etc. It's a transfer of wealth from the worker, the working class, to the Trump class. And everybody talks about, oh, Trump is a businessman, a great businessman. He's a great businessman. Are you kidding me? These are the concept. These are the things that they do to the average working American citizen. And you are always just a cog, a pawn in the wheel. So those who are supporting, we need to run our country like a business. Are you kidding me? If we ever did that, understand that you're but a commodity. Understand what these corporations do. It's not that Egberto is anti-corporations and anti-biz. I love business. I have businesses. But what we're talking about is thievery, what we call legal fraud, because we use the mechanism of capitalism, which by design, they're following the rules of capitalism. Because everything is about capital. That's why whenever we apply a tax, whenever we apply a service or whatever, the first thing you will hear people ask is, how will that affect business? The first thing that should be asked is, how does that affect the well-being of the American population? How does that affect someone having a more prosperous life? How does that make your life more enjoyable? Business is supposed to work at the behest of humanity, not the other way around. But capitalism is by force, by design, something that was made to do what again? To service capital and those who own capital. So it isn't the popular thing to go against capitalism because the first thing people say is, oh, you damn communist, which I'm definitely not. I'm a free enterpriser. I believe in free enterprise. I believe in everybody being able to have access to success. I believe in everybody being able to own their own businesses. I believe everybody should be able to be profitable and make a profit on what they do. What I don't believe in is a system that turns you into capital, fracture you into bits and pieces, and selling you like the slave we have been made to be. And if you doubt it, whenever you hear about income inequality and wealth disparity, it didn't happen by accident. It is a concrete design of our economic system. We've tried to mitigate it many times by creating progressive tax rates that as you get more money, you're taxed more, by ensuring that the profits from companies in the past couldn't be used to do things like stock buybacks that affect employees. We used to do those things to take the evil out of capitalism, or to take some of the evil out of capitalism. We tried it. And it worked for some time between Franklin Delano Roosevelt, FDR, the New Deal, the Great Society, and all these programs that were created to take the malice out of what capitalism does, because it has no heart by design, right? It's all about, if you take a look at the definition, the efficient allocation of resources, which is false, first of all, because look at the healthcare system. The efficient allocation of resources doesn't mean having many entities in there at all. In fact, that makes it inefficient. But that's what it says. And the God of capitalism said, forget about any social programs. Forget about the environment. Your sole goal as executives in a capitalist company is the maximization of profits for the shareholder. No other job do you have. And that eventually results in monopoly. And why does that eventually result in monopoly? Because if you are maximizing the profits of your entities, of your shareholders, etc., eventually you try to eat up everything that is competing to minimize or to limit the profits of your shareholders. Continue with the article. The kind of looting by private equity has since the 1980s happened thousands of times in all sectors of our economy, leading to the needless loss of millions of jobs. Researchers writing for the Becker-Friedman Institute at the University of Chicago have found that on average, employment shrinks by 13% when a private equity firm buys a public company, as Forbes notes. All too often, when private equity professionals tout their cost-cutting strategies, they do not mention that cost-cutting means firing people and taking away their livelihoods. Yes, they want to make more, which is what they do. That's the design of that. A private equity corporation, that is their mission. Their mission isn't to do good for society. Their mission isn't to do good for humanity. Their mission is the people who own this equity firm will go out there and hunt. They hunt companies they can buy on the cheap, leverage it, sell it off, and dump employees as best they can to take that money. That's the design. That is not saying that is a byproduct. That is the design of a private equity company. They're doing it in healthcare right now. Look around your neighborhood, whether you're in Ohio, whether you are in North Carolina, whether you're in Georgia, Texas, whatever. You see all these pop-up emergency rooms starting up. You see all these little clinics coming up. And have you been to one of them and see what they charge and why they charge and how they charge? These are private equity firms buying up all of these things, putting doctors to work for them, etc. These doctors are now making menial salaries, one employee, and then they are cleaning up on the insurance companies, which ultimately you pay for as well. This privatization and framing it as something good for you is the biggest lie. And by you not understanding, and when I say you, I'm talking about those who are learning this today, not understand, will have you vote against your own interest. You know why Donald Trump gets a pass, folks? You know why the media, in as much as people like to say, look how the mainstream media is treating Donald Trump, he doesn't get the treatment that he deserves for the harm that they've done. You notice when Donald Trump told Hillary Clinton, I don't pay taxes because I am smart? Remember that? He's right. Because again, taxes are for us. These guys are thieves. That's what he's telling you. What he's also telling you is I don't have to pay back loans to bank. I go ahead and tell a bank, give me a loan. Here's the asset that I may control a piece of. I write it up this way. I give it a value, whatever value I want to give it. And you give me something on it. It's the system. It's capitalism. It's how it works. And if you play the game, if you went to school, if you went to let's say the business school, Harvard Business School, or the business, these are things that you learn, and you tend to believe that there's something honest about it. You tend to believe that there may be something rewarding about it, but it is nothing more than legalized theft and antiseptic slavery. Free enterprise is what should reign. And until we understand these features, we will never get ahead. Stock buybacks and greed. Workers are also learning that when hedge funds buy up company stock and demand stock buybacks, there's job trouble ahead. Just ask the 32,000 workers in Bed Bath & Beyond. Women listening to my show right now, you guys remember Bed Bath & Beyond, right? No, a lot of people shop there. My wife used to love her Bed Bath & Beyond and get all those sweet things and towels and all of that. That company has been always doing fine, but it got those sharks saw it and said, we can make some money there. All right. A stock buyback, which was essentially illegal until 1982, is a form of stock manipulation. A company uses its funds or borrows money to go into the marketplace and buy up its own shares of stock. By doing so, the number of shares in circulation goes down while the earnings per share go up. The stock price rises, even though no new value was added to the company. It's just a matter of manipulating. It is not these guys providing values. They are the ones who people revere. Hey, look at that rich venture capitalist. Hey, look at that rich stock fund holder. Hey, look at that rich private equity firm manager. They revere these people. And these people are no better than Lucifer, because their job is to take away money from those who earned it, those who worked for it, and pocket it by using financial instruments to do so. There is no good value that comes out of this. But this is capitalism. This is Trump. This is what they're talking about. When you hear Kamala talk about an opportunity economy, it is, she won't say this. She would come out and say, I am a capitalist, but I want to make sure it's an opportunity economy. They are mutually exclusive. They are mutually exclusive. They cannot coexist. They cannot coexist. Once you put the brakes on capitalism, what you get is free enterprise in the good direction or fascism in the bad direction. And what she's doing is cloaking capitalism with free enterprise and saying, let's create an opportunity economy. And that is what all of us should want. All of us who work for corporations, we are at the behest at whatever private equity firm wants to come in and say, wait a minute, I can make $1 by leveraging that company. I can make $1 by selling that company. I can make $1 by laying off those workers, because even as they're needed, even as they're the ones producing, I can make $1. Folks, I'm coming to the callers in a minute. Every first Saturday of the month, I have a program for my listeners, for the PDR Politics Done Right Posse, called Ask Egberto Anything. It's a Zoom call, and folks who sign up for it, we talk, on Zoom, video if you want to. If you don't want, turn your camera off, and we have questions. And a few conservatives came on, and one specifically, I think he's in the chat right now, kind of gave me a hard time because he got offended when I when I confronted them with willful ignorance and certain phrases that I use. And I try to say, and one of my progressive listeners says, Egberto, while you're right, I understand what you're saying, but maybe you need to find a better way to say it. When I'm speaking specifically to my right-wing brothers and sisters, because you want to be heard, you want to be listened to, you want them to listen to you. And one of them said, yeah, if you're hitting this up, I'm not really listening, we're fighting, right? And I agree with them. Yes, on the program, I did tell them, you know what, I try to do that. Hell, I wrote the book, It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relative Friends and Neighbors. But I said, you know what, I'm only human. We are all just humans. And sometimes you get so frustrated with people with people allowing themselves to be used, people allowing themselves to be gullible, that sometimes you just go bat, crazy in your rhetoric. So I'm going to try to modify some of that rhetoric. They want us to remain ignorant on these issues. They do. And this goes to everybody, so I can say it. It's not just to my right wingers. So let's not be willfully ignorant. I have been ignorant of a lot of things myself. When I was a sexist, I was ignorant. When I was a homophobe, I was ignorant. When I learned how ignorant I was, I made the change and I atoned. And in the process, I was no longer ignorant. As well, I could have stayed, even knowing the truth. I could have stayed being a sexist. Even knowing the truth, I could have stayed being a homophobe. But that would then make me willfully ignorant. And there's something dangerous. There's something pathetic about being willfully ignorant for whatever reason it is that you choose willful ignorance. There are certain things that are black and white. There are certain things that are debatable. I can debate whether we want small government or big government or right-sized government. We can have a valid discussion. That's a gray area. If you want less services for the government, you're a little government person. You live by the constraints that you've given. If I want larger government and that's what we vote for, we built a constraint. That isn't wrong or right. That is preference. But there are certain things that are black and white that are not debatable, that are provable. And that is where we need to sit, my brothers and sisters.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number 1, subscribe to our channel. And number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.